Genes, the very thing that characterises our unique looks, features and traits, which are passed down from our ancestors. All living things in the world have genes. We have genes, this thing has genes, this thing has genes, and likewise, Chao have genes too. But here, we're not going to delve into grade 10 biology because unlike the real world, Chao genetics are simple and structured. Nowhere near as complex as inheriting genes in real life. Now before I get into the nitty-gritty of Chao breeding and inheriting genes, we need to make sure this video is actually relevant to you. It must come to our attention that there are two different versions of the Chao breeding system. Number 1, the good version. Number 2, the bad version. The better version of Chao breeding originated from the Gamecube versions, in Sonic Adventure 2 Battle and Sonic Adventure DX. Luckily, the same versions are also present in the PC and in the PlayStation 3 Xbox 360 version of Sonic Adventure 2. There are a few minor differences between these remakes, which we will cover later on. The boring breeding version made its debut in the Dreamcast games of Sonic Adventure 1 and 2. These two games are the originals and the very first games to introduce Chao, so I guess I can excuse them for having a really simplified breeding system. However, the PlayStation 3 Xbox 360 remake of Sonic Adventure 1 utilises the same inferior version, which makes absolutely no sense while all the other re-releases of the game got the update, and yet this one didn't. This just makes me want to go to the Sonic Team headquarters and slap someone in the face with a chainsaw. And do you know why this version sucks so much? It's so simplified that you cannot make anything interesting, such as two-tones, shiny two-tones, monotone normals, translucent and invisible Chao. Chao breeding just increases the replayability by tenfold. Why they butchered such an awesome feature is beyond me. So please, don't use Sonic Adventure 1 for the 360 PlayStation 3, it sucks. Just use any other version. Okay, enough ranting, let's get back on topic. To make sure we're all on the same page, let me introduce you to some terminology that I'll be using throughout this video. Allele, a variable of a gene. Every Chao has 2 alleles stored in each trait. Genotype, the full genetic profile of the Chao. Genotype generally shows all the genes and alleles that a Chao has, both hidden and visible. Phenotype, the physical appearance of the Chao as a result of its genes. Phenotype can only show the visible genes and cannot show the hidden or dormant alleles. Any allele that is highlighted in this video will determine the phenotype. Just to get this clear, genotype is a genetic profile, phenotype is the physical profile. There are 4 main traits that determine a Chao's appearance: tone, colour, shine, and texture. Let me go through each of these traits in a little more detail. Tone. This trait determines whether or not your Chao is a monotone or a two-tone. Tone has only 2 possible alleles, monotone and two-tone. Monotone is just one solid colour, and usually stays the same entirely throughout a Chao's life. Monotones are typically obtained from the black market. Two-tone typically means more than one tone of colour on the Chao's body. The default Chao you start with are, in fact, two-tones. Contrary to its name, two-tones can actually be more than 2 colours. Some Chao types can feature 3 or even 4 different colours. Both monotone and two-tone alleles are equal in dominance. Colour. Colour is quite self-explanatory. What base colour does the Chao have? Your Chao can be any of the following colours: white, sky blue, blue, lime green, green, red, orange, grey, black, pink, purple, yellow, and normal. Yes, normal is indeed a colour. Your default Chao at the beginning of the game are examples of normal coloured Chao. All colour alleles are equal in dominance, except for the normal colour, which is recessive. We'll get to an example of this later on. Now, I did mention allele dominance here and there for these traits. If you're still confused about it, let's go through some examples to see this in practice. So let's make ourselves a red two-tone. To make any two-tone, we need a monotone colour Chao, in this case a red Chao, and we'll need a normal coloured two-tone. So here we have Nux, the monotone red originally bought from the black market. Here's his genotype. And here we have Ditto, just your average Joe Chao who is a two-tone normal. And here is his genotype. So let's get some heart fruits and breed these guys 10 times. And let's see what we get in the process. When Chao breed, both parents give one allele from each trait. Every child Chao gets 50% of the genes from both parents, but it is selected at random exactly what alleles are chosen to be inherited. And if there's any equal dominance in any of the traits, one allele is randomly chosen to be shown on the surface. This is where we see the monotone and two-tone being randomly selected, since they're both at equal dominance. Because of our homozygous parents in each trait, it's kinda obvious to see where the offspring gets their colours and tone from. The red colour and monotone genes come from Nux, while the two-tone genes come from Ditto. But wait, how come none of the offspring were normal coloured? That's because the red colour dominates over normal colour. If we want to get a normal coloured Chao, we need to breed one that has not one but two normal alleles for the normal colour to actually show up in the phenotype. Now, let's try and breed the red two-tone that we just got with the same two-tone normal. Don't worry, incest doesn't count in these games. Here's the heterozygous genotype for our red two-tone. Note that the highlighted genes are the ones dictating phenotype. And the results were... So you may be thinking, where did that white Chao actually come from? Well, let's take a look at this peculiar Chao's genotype for a moment. This is what was inherited from the red two-tone. And these are the alleles that were inherited by Ditto. No white colour gene to be seen here. That's because this Chao is actually a normal coloured Chao. That white Chao offspring is known as a monotone normal Chao. To prove this, let's start petting it with a dark character. As you pet the Chao, you'll notice that it will gain a reddish tinge. This is because the normal colour gene has the ability to completely change the colour depending on the type and alignment your Chao is becoming. You may notice that the normal two-tone Chao drastically changes their own colour schemes too. So, just like normal two-tone Chao, monotone normals also take on this colour changing characteristic. Monotone normals as hero Chao unfortunately only appear as white, but for neutral and dark types, things get a little bit more interesting. Now, let's talk about another different trait, the shiny trait. No, not that shiny, this shiny. This trait determines whether or not your Chao has that sparkly overcoat. Only two different alleles exist for this trait, shiny and non-shiny. One thing to mention about shinies is that their colour tends to be a little bit lighter than their non-shiny counterparts. For example, black, grey, purple and brown. The shiny allele has dominance over the non-shiny allele. To show this as an example, let's breed a shiny monotone lime green with a non-shiny monotone pink. Here are their genotypes, and let's breed them about 10 times. From this example, every single Chao was a shiny given how the shiny allele dominates over non-shiny. However, the colours were different by about 50-50 because all colour alleles are equally dominant from each other. Except for the normal colour, that is. Breeding one shiny monotone with a different colour non-shiny monotone can help you make shiny coloured Chao that you may not obtain as easily through the black market. This is a much cheaper alternative to obtain many different types of Chao, such as the shiny black Chao. However, you still need to keep in mind that the other colour you use to breed is still present in the offspring's genotype. As you see here, the shiny pink we made from the shiny lime green parent could still pass down the lime green colour gene. Just because you don't see it in the phenotype doesn't mean it can't be passed down. In the same way we made our red two-tone earlier, you can also make shiny two-tones. Just use the shiny monotone from the black market and you're set to go. But wait, here's where some version differences come into play. A shiny red two-tone looks like this on the Gamecube versions, but on the Sonic Adventure 2 on the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, you may get a much different result. Exclusive to the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 is something known as the Bright Chao. They're essentially shiny two-tones, but for one reason or another, they appear abnormally bright and even show pretty weird colouring. They do function much like a shiny two-tone Chao, even if they don't appear shiny at all. My only guess is that Sonic Team screwed something up when they were trying to convert the game into high definition. But I personally think these bright Chao look pretty interesting, allowing for other colour combinations that would otherwise be impossible to get on the Gamecube versions. And finally moving on to our fourth and final trait, texture. Texture tells us if the Chao is, or isn't, a dual Chao. Texture alleles include silver, gold, sapphire, emerald, ruby, amethyst, aquamarine, topaz, garnet, onyx, peridot, I don't know how to say that one, but you get the idea. And if the Chao is not a dual, they'll simply have the no texture allele. Texture alleles are all equally dominant, except for the no texture allele, which is recessive. Unfortunately, most dual Chao are only available on the Gamecube versions, so if you have a PlayStation 3 or Xbox 360 version, you are left in the dark here. You do have available the gold and silver Chao for Sonic Adventure 1, but we all know that that version isn't really that good. Back on topic though, texture is a unique trait, which it is in fact the most dominant trait of all. That it has the capacity to override a Chao's colour and tone in terms of their physical appearance. The dual Chao you obtain are in fact non-shiny normal coloured two-tones, just like a default Chao, except with a texture. So a pure dual Chao with no ancestors would have a genotype like this, but the phenotype would take on the dual texture. Now let's show you the texture dominance in action. Meet Chaos, the emerald jewel Chao that I got from my Sonic Pinball Party cartridge. Let's breed this fellow with one of our non-shiny two-tones and see what we get. Every single Chao offspring ended up being an emerald jewel Chao, since texture takes priority as a phenotype. We could have ended up with perhaps a few colour two-tones and maybe even a couple of monotone normals, but we cannot really say for sure since the texture is concealing everything. While tone and colour alleles cannot be seen with textured Chao, when you add shiny and texture traits together, things get a little bit interesting. Strangely enough, shiny traits and texture traits are both equally dominant from each other. This leads to unprecedented results, including transparent Chao, pseudo Chao, and invisible Chao. These types of Chao can be collectively called shiny jewel Chao, because that's what's required to make them. Shiny jewels also exist in the PC versions of the games, but exist as shiny colour two-tones that don't appear to have a phenotype that matches with their genotype. Seriously, that conflicting shiny and jewel allele generates results that make no sense. I do have a playlist of me making each and every one of these shiny jewels on the Gamecube version of Sonic Adventure DX, which I'll provide a link in the description. But here, we'll go into some more examples. Let's bring our good friend Chaos and breed with Cloud, a shiny monotone white. Both are pure and have no parents, so their genotypes are homozygous like always. Let's get breeding. Our results show that every Chao ended up being translucent, aka a shiny jewel white Chao. Why didn't we get anything else? Let's see their genotypes. This heterozygous genotype shown here had inherited the shiny allele and the white colour allele from Cloud. Given that shiny dominates over non-shiny and that all colours dominate over normal, it's expected that we'd see a shiny and a white Chao alleles to take effect 100% of the time. As with the jewel texture, the emerald allele from Chaos also impacted on the phenotype every time. As we know, texture overrides the non-texture allele. So white, shiny and jewel make up the phenotype, which makes it look transparent. In the Gamecube version, that is. You will get a different outcome if you use a different coloured shiny Chao. So if I used a shiny purple, rather than getting a slightly greenish transparent Chao, I'd get a transparent sky blue coloured Chao. This is probably the few instances where texture doesn't override colour, as we see that colour does indeed influence the appearance of the shiny jewel Chao. Hello and welcome to a random end slate thingy where I have nothing in front of me at all, so I have no idea what I am saying or how I'm saying it, but it's one of those things all the cool kids on YouTube are doing, where they put videos on the end of a video and to say things like, hey, look at us, totally subscribe because we make videos about things which are somewhat similar to the video that you just watched. So, I've got 2 buttons here, one about where I explain evolution, and another one where I'll explain something else, I'll figure it out, something there. But thank you so much for- I just hit something. Thank you so much for your patience, and I really appreciate it. There will be more things coming. I swear, look, there will be more videos and they will contain Chao, and you will hopefully enjoy them. So, until next time, I will see you then. This has been Sapphire Chao, and I am over and out.